Little Caesars changed the game, bro.
They did.
Little Caesars changed. That's the most childish shit ever.
Hey, Chewy, blood. They want you on the podcast, bro. Look, he Mexican, bro. You gotta put him on.
Am I interrupting your depression? I'm sorry.
This week's episode of The Voice Party is brought to you by Big Boy Raps. Get your car wrapped by some of the most experienced and skilled in the Bay. Big Boy Raps, where the big boys play.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls all around the world, it's time for another edition of the greatest podcast in the world, The Voice Party. To my immediate right, you have JD R&D, a comedian, master comedian. You've got to my left, Phil Spooner on the boards. Yours truly, Joaquin, aka Black Joaquin Xavier, and our illustrious guests, Dregs one. Give it up, give it up, give it up, give it up.
What's up, man?
Thank you for having me, man.
Thank you for coming down here and blessing our mics, bro.
My pleasure.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of what you're doing. Like I said to you off camera, I've watched your content for a while now, and you don't really see people talking about Dream or Ty, other than like what was that Piece by Piece documentary, and to see like that part of the Bay Area culture, which is a huge part of the Bay Area culture being talked about, is like some real archivist shit that you're doing.
Oh, I appreciate that, man. Yeah. I just do it because I enjoy it, and it caught on, so I'm gonna keep doing it. Yeah.
What? So take us a little bit back into what got you involved in this, because I know you start off with like you're still doing music.
Right. Yeah. So I mean, growing up in San Francisco, all these things were like typical pastimes.
Yeah.
It's like rites of passages, tagging on the bus. Even rap too. Rap was everywhere. Freestyle sessions on the bus, freestyle ciphers outside. So I just got into those things around the same time, rap and graffiti, but I grew up seeing it all around me. Right. So that's why a lot of the history I talk about, whether it be hip hop or graffiti, is because I actually saw a good portion of it. Yeah, I lived right there where all this stuff was happening. And, I would get put on by people too about music I haven't heard or graffiti stuff that was going down at the time. And yeah, I just fully immersed myself in it when I turned 14 and really started not like recording raps, but freestyling, hitting parties, trying to figure it out. How do you make beats? How do you record? Where do you get a microphone? And at the same time, just going through graffiti. I was never like the king of San Francisco, but it was just part of my life. It was just something you did. And the more I gravitated towards rap, the less graffiti I did, and vice versa. Sometimes I had times where I was just tagging all day and going out every night. And then the more I did that, the less raps I was making. So, and then in between that, going to school, man, working with the youth, City College. I went to like 4 different universities, man. It took me a while. Dropped out, went back, dropped out again type of thing. But the whole time, music and graffiti has pretty much been a huge part of my life.
How did you discover, the studio, the first studio you've ever went to record? Like, what brought you to that studio?
Well, this was technically not a studio, but my boy Telly Prego, who I was in a group called Gas Mask Colony with, and we grew up together, went to middle school and high school together. He had a program on his computer that he downloaded through LimeWire called Cool Edit Pro.
Oh yeah,
you know about that?
I remember. Yeah.
And he had a Radio Shack mic that was like this big, and we would record little freestyles and stuff over there. Then through a community program at a place called Horizons Unlimited, they had this thing called the DJ Project, still around today. So they brought kids into the actual studio to learn how to count bars, how to record, how to do doubles, how to perform, how to hold the microphone.
This is after you already been doing freestyles.
Yeah, this was just me. But those freestyles were kind of picking up traction around my friends.
For sure.
So like people who knew us already from freestyling and being at parties, and just, there was 4 of us. So it was a whole different spread of people that we were reaching. And then when I got to the this program, I saw how they made it all official. And I guess that's another thing as I'm thinking about it, like to get into the history stuff, just being around people like that in the educational community space too.
Right.
Where they were like intentional about putting younger people on to certain things.
And that kind of thing helps, like when you have a teacher, for example, like early on, that I liked cracking jokes, and then teachers put me on to Richard Pryor.
Yeah.
Like that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Really just pushes that little part of your psyche into that even more.
Yeah, it goes a long way.
Big time.
Yeah.
And I think those people that do that, man, it's a blessing for a lot of us that don't have access to certain things, like certain books, certain shows growing up.
Right.
Where it kind of validates the art for you, or if it is art or whatever it is, it validates like, oh shit, you could actually make a living out of this, or
yeah,
it's a way bigger thing than just scribbling on a book.
Yeah. You got to expand your knowledge base if you want to pursue something. You got to know how it's been done previously and formulate your own ideas around that.
What like when you first, it looks like you first got into the hip hop thing before you got into graffiti, or is that do you see them all in the same?
I don't see any difference because graffiti was all around me as a kid. Like a lot of the stuff I covered from the early 90s when I was really young, like I remember seeing it.
Yeah.
Some of these things made an impression on me. At the same time, I'm talking like my earliest memories.
Yeah.
Same with rap. Whether it's Sir Mix-a-Lot or Criss Cross on TV after school, KMEL, the Wake Up Show.
Yeah. I
was listening to all this stuff. I was trying to freestyle when I was a young kid, writing rhymes as a young kid, trying to just play around with it. And same with art too, comic books, drawing, like. When you're a young kid in a city environment, it's like competitive thing. Like, oh, he plays basketball hella good. Oh, he can dance hella good. Oh, he can draw hella good. You're looking for all these little things that make you stick out.
Right.
You know what I mean?
And I see that, because when I was younger, like in my middle school, high school, I hung out with a lot of kids who were into graffiti.
Right.
They carry a black book with them.
Right.
Their skateboards were all, pieced up.
Right.
And the thing that I saw, it was the competition aspect of it kept them trying to move on to better themselves.
Yeah. That's a good point.
Yeah. And I think that's one of those things that is very helpful because it's competitiveness, but it's not like a greedy thing.
No, you just want to get your shine on and it helps you get better and you compete with your friends.
Yeah.
And that stuff helps you grow.
Iron sharpens iron.
Yeah.
Goes, oh, you did that. I'm about to do this.
Exactly.
Same with rhymes.
Exactly.
Yep. Sure,
Of course. I mean, we grew up battling.
Yeah.
A lot of battles. Like I lived an old school hip hop kind of life just organically.
Right.
I didn't see like a TV show like I'm gonna copy this TV show. It's just like, oh, this is what's going on.
Yeah.
Okay, what's up?
Yep.
And some of those people I was battling with like went on to be friends. And then you start building this community of other people who are putting out CDs, rocking shows. Yeah. And then, it builds from there.
Can you explain the origin of your MC name, Dregs 1? Like, what was the process in coming up with that?
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of my own name, but it's too late at this point to change it up. I don't feel like changing it up. It's a graffiti name, but I didn't write it for that long, so I didn't like cover the CD in this name. I saw it in the beginning of Scarface. There's this little writing where he talks about the boats coming to America, and he says he sent over the dregs of his prisons.
Right.
And I had just got caught for another name before that, so I needed to change it. I'm like, ooh, those are some tight letters. Dregs. Started tagging that, and then got caught for that name in school. I was just destroying the school like an idiot. Never. I don't know where the camera is, but never tag at your school or around your school. It's too hot.
Big mistake.
Yeah, because they was just like they were like they came to see me one time. I was already tagging on some papers in class, and they came to get me, and they're like, oh, bring that.
Yeah.
And it was like, we were wondering who's.
I gotta take pictures too sometimes, huh?
All that. I went through all of it. They were like, who's tall enough to hit some of these spots, and who's always in the hallways, and it's you. And I got busted. I had to go to court, all that stuff. Shit. Yeah. So I had to I had to stop writing Dregs after that, but people just kept calling me that.
Okay.
It was like my street name, basically. Where some people knew me only as Dregs at that point.
I think of whenever like a writer gets caught and he has to change his name, like when luchadors, where they get unmasked,
they've been dismantled,
and now they gotta
dishonored.
come up with a new character. That's what that reminds me of, because I saw a lot of like friends that I grew up with, like, oh, the cops pulled him over, and I know one cat used to carry a book with a made-up name, so that if he did get caught, cops would see that fake name that he only wrote on there, and they didn't know his real.
I never heard that before. That's smart. That's planning ahead right there.
Yeah, just so that he wouldn't get caught, and they say, oh, we've never seen this fucking name, so
Yeah, once they have you on paperwork, that stays in your record. So anytime you get busted under that same name, they can just pull it right up. Like, I'm super burnt right now as a graffiti writer. If I was to get wrapped up anywhere in California at this point, just because of my record and my public, even if I switched my name and I got caught, it'd be like, oh, that guy, the guy who's all over, because I know they've been watching me for years, even before I was doing this content. I know that for sure. So,
and I'm sure
I don't break the law anymore, guys. Nothing to see here.
And I'm sure, because I've heard of guys. We just had it on a comedian. There was some guy, Chaka. Do you remember that?
Sure.
I didn't know he was from LA. I saw him all over Richmond. Right. And according, all over Richmond, and he was from LA, and just for me, that's one of those cool things that kind of like where they talk about like Banksy, like you see this thing written everywhere, and it's like, oh, I've seen that, and it's kind of like they're like a Batman-like character.
Yeah, definitely.
And I think that adds to the what's the word I'm looking for? Like the
mystique.
The mystique of graffiti. Mm-hmm. Once you're watching it, because I watched your episode on Thai. Mm-hmm. Back when I was younger in high school, I remember a lot of cats saying, "Oh, I knew Thai." They're lying. They didn't. There's a lot of guys that said, "Oh yeah, I knew him." And that was like the mystique with him, like people, because he was everywhere at the time. Right. Did you ever get a chance to meet him?
No, he died when I was like in 5th grade, so I wasn't out like that.
That was like a guy a lot of people remember talking about. That he was, and you can still see some of his stuff. When I was like on a school trip, I remember seeing his stuff, and then guys would say, "Oh yeah, I knew him." Right. But they were lying.
I think those might be tributes. I don't think he has.
Oh, you don't think he?
No, I don't know. I don't believe he has any original graffiti left.
Wow, that's crazy that he has tributes on it.
Yeah. People are still putting up his throw ups and stuff.
Because I know the other guy that does have you mentioned it. Dream still has stuff up. Are they tributes, or is that stuff that he?
I don't know if he has any original pieces running either. I mean, nothing in graffiti lasts forever, whether it's the sun or a building getting knocked down or somebody painting over it. Yeah, that's the nature of it. Yeah. So I can't. There's like there's a mural dedicated to Plan B that he painted that's still up in East Oakland. I believe it's off International, and that just recently got restored. People went and touched it up, but I don't know if he has any like graffiti running it anywhere.
I gotta ask you about, because like I said, I watch your content. How do you get I mean, there's no book to read, how do you go about like finding the story to put it out there? Because I know it's hard to find a lot of this stuff.
There are actually a couple books to read. Yeah, it's like The Art of Getting Over. There's a few Bay Area graffiti books. There's old magazines that I still have. But I mean, you're right though. Not too many sources.
No. So like piece by piece, when I saw that as in younger and Infamy, it was like the only pieces. I think I've shown you Infamy. Those are the only pieces that I saw about graph culture. Until like people started watching about Banksy, and they started getting interested in that again. And another thing, how do you feel about people like Banksy, like that style of art?
Well, Banksy is more what I would consider a street artist, just because he doesn't do letters or graffiti style characters. He puts up public art, usually illegally, So that's street art. I mean, a lot of people have problems with street artists. I don't really mind it, especially if they're getting up in that style and they pay tribute to where that idea even came from.
Right.
You know, because that goes back to people like Keith Haring.
Yeah.
Putting his characters up on the subway trains, like the Obey Shepherd Ferry stuff.
Yeah.
That stuff was dope to me. So.
Was it The Invader, right?
Yeah, Space Invaders,
another one.
Yeah.
It's a, like we were talking about, it's a big, like New York. If you talk about like the history of hip hop or just New York in the 70s, 80s, you can't mention like the culture of it without talking about graffiti.
Sure. Yeah.
Same with like the Bay Area, like it's one of those things that I guess because it's illegal, it doesn't get validated.
Yeah, I mean that's damn near the point.
That's the point.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. But I feel like there should be more. You know, it should be seen more as of course vandalism, but also like appreciated as an art in itself. You know, and that's why I see what you're doing is dope, man. Because a lot of people are growing up in this San Francisco or this Bay Area now. Where what do you think the future for graffiti is going forward?
The future of graffiti?
Yeah.
I think right now there's a lot of people, like Oakland is crushed.
Yeah.
San Francisco is getting crushed again. It's just different styles. It's a lot of young kids that have been coming out. I think pandemic seems like globally created a graffiti resurgence in a lot of places. Definitely Frisco. You know, there's just a lot less kids in the city because of gentrification and housing costs and stuff. So it's not the same rite of passage that I grew up in, where everybody had a tag and everybody was crushing the buses. And then the artists from other towns who would come through and drop a lot of style. You know, it's not a rent friendly city for artists anymore. So there's less of that too. But yeah, there's a lot of kids going out there and doing some cool stuff. So I don't think it'll ever die completely.
For sure.
Even with cameras and social media and all this stuff, is like that's what I really love about graffiti, is that you can't stop someone's instinct from writing on a wall. You know what I'm saying? It's like when there's no more graffiti, that's when you know that there's like complete mind control out there.
For sure.
One good thing I'd say about cameras being proliferated is that there always will be a record that the graffiti was there and that it existed. You know what I mean? How many pieces have been lost to time because no one took a picture?
Well, I don't know, man. That's an interesting conversation, because back in the day, taking flicks was a little more of a ritual, actually, because of that reason. So I feel like there were a lot more prolific graffiti photographers when I was growing up. I mean, even I would just walk around sometimes with my friends and be like, let's just go take pictures, bud. And, you know, I still have a few of those photos laying around. Now with Instagram and stuff like that, like, it's dope. It gets seen by more people, but it's more of a temporary thing.
Right.
And just like real quick, like look at this. You know,
it'll get buffed out in 2-3 days.
Yeah, and it's just a different pursuit when people are going out there and like documenting.
For sure.
Yeah.
How do you feel about that as an artist who did it? Like, you know, that it's, you know, because we had one of our friends who, you know, was a graph writer. He said, because it's gonna go away, that's also why it's more like, to you, it's as an artist is important. It's like, you know, as a graph writer, we like to creating and destroying is kind of hand in hand.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely like a nice feeling in having something that lasts
For sure.
for a long time. I have a few pieces up that have been up 6-7 years.
Yeah,
that's pretty cool. I have to go and touch them up sometimes, but you know, overall, yeah, I do think that's the meditation of it. You're doing it just to do it. That's the purest form of expression. You're not necessarily doing it for any other reason than because you enjoy it, you know?
For sure. That's how I feel about, you know, doing stand-up comedy.
Right.
It's never, and I can kind of maybe relate it to with graph writers. You know, we're doing the same thing a lot of the nights, but each time you do it is different in its own way.
Yeah.
And, you know, people might forget my jokes the next day, but at that moment it was dope.
Yeah, for sure.
And there's something special about that, like doing that all the time, that, you know, it's the same thing, but there's something different about it. You know, I'm going through something today. It's the same jokes as yesterday, but today I'm like high stress and just being able to be in that moment. I don't think there's a lot of people that can understand that, you know what I'm saying? When you're not involved in anything creatively. Do you think being involved in like in the graphic and the arts in general like has had a impact on you like for your everyday life now?
Yeah.
It's crazy to think that people will go their whole lives without expressing themselves in any different way.
That's true.
Yeah.
I mean, I was just blessed that, like I said, I came up in a community, so it was like so many people around me were doing it. There were so many places to go do it. Right. It was happening everywhere. So many people in my network of people I know now that have gone on to do amazing things, and you know, those are people I met through graffiti.
Yeah.
My whole approach to my music, to pushing my music in terms of making sure the art is dope and it gets seen as much as possible, and doing guerrilla marketing, putting up stickers, stuff like that. I still love to draw. I still paint. I still do artwork for people. It's just a huge part of my life, and I hope that it stays that way as long as I'm here. You know what I'm saying?
One thing I was gonna mention to you is, or ask you about is, you know, I see you're doing your podcast at Amoeba Records.
I did one live podcast in the store, but they're a sponsor of the History of the Bay podcast.
That's awesome,
Nice.
man. And another thing that I think is cool that you're doing the History of the Bay podcast. Has there ever been, like, I don't think there's ever been like a podcast that talks about some of the stuff you've talked about? Like, you just did I mean, not that I know of, you know, but I just saw that you had on a guy from Richmond. And Magic Mike.
Yeah.
I grew up in Richmond near where those guys grew up. I never met them. I've seen them in pictures, other people, but I never heard it, you know, other than word of mouth.
Yeah.
What you talked about.
Right.
That it might possibly be some of the first West Coast rappers.
Right.
Whoa.
Yeah. That's the fun part about having this podcast.
Dude, that's wild. Yeah.
And having access to some of the people I have access to, and some of the knowledge I have access to. And the idea of doing it was so that people could tell the stories themselves. So it's not just me talking about people, because I don't know everything, and I've never claimed to be like the expert on any of this stuff.
For sure.
But giving someone like Magic Mike a platform is big. And I've had all types of different people. I've had mostly rappers, a few graffiti writers. I had somebody who's a former heroin addict who now works in recovery.
Wow.
I've had journalists on. So I'm trying to tell the history of the Bay in a real complete picture. And like you said, touching on those things that people might not know about.
And that's it.
Who was your favorite interview so far, and why?
That Magic Mike one might be that was crazy to me. That was big for me to have a pioneer like that like people don't have access to this guy. Like, I just met him doing the podcast, but for him to be able to come through and speak on some of the stuff, like even from my own understanding of where all this Bay Area music came from, that was big for me. Like, you know, and then just having something so exclusive, like, whoa, this dude's gonna tell his story probably more detailed than any of the other interviews I've seen him do over the years. Because
he probably also hasn't had a platform to speak about it in a long time. Like, you know, like that's the thing that I love about, you know, the podcast era right now, where, you know, we can have on guests that, like we were talking about with our last guest, good stories can come out of anywhere.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that's the beauty about, you know, just everyday people everyday people get movies made about them, you know, like that's the thing that's, it kind of shifted back, I would say, power as far as journalism goes to regular people in the podcasting world.
Yeah, you don't have to go to a radio station,
right,
or a TV station. And
with, like, you know, you build up a following, and that in itself, you know, you can be the daily the daily show of your town. And the thing that I always, you know, as I get older and start learning the history more of the Bay Area, man, there's a lot of stuff that's come out of here that doesn't get talked about as much. On hip hop, like you mentioned, and then, you know, I grew up, you know, going to metal shows, punk shows.
Nice.
And, you know, the whole thrash metal, which is global now, started in the Bay Area, Richmond, SF, Oakland area.
Right.
And that thing is global now, where it's, you know, but the Roots, the first band that came out from is Richmond, California.
Right
the
here,
first,
yeah.
I didn't even know that myself. That's
great.
Yeah,
That's dope.
the first, and I've heard that from people that aren't from Richmond that tell me about, you know, stuff that, where I grew up.
Yeah, that's dope.
Yeah. So that's the thing that I think the Bay Area, you know, we're not, it's, you know, we don't have the Hollywood here, but a lot of stuff, like I said, has come out of here. And that's why I think people like you are important, because you're adding to that.
Right on. Yeah, I mean, there's so much to pull from. So I feel like I could just, like I said, I just talk about the stuff I enjoy talking about.
Yeah. And that's the thing, man. Like you know, the deeper you look into it, like if you go back to World War II, how this was a big, this area was a big part of that. Just go fast forward to how many things have happened here. Like I said, it doesn't get talked about as much, and you know, I'm trying to word it, man. Sorry, but like basically, as far as like, you know, because this is not seen as a like I'll do.
The Bay Area seems to be the West Coast entertainment's best kept secret.
Yes. Yeah.
I was gonna ask, do you think there's so much history here that's not known even within us? And if so, why do you think so?
By the way, this is Marcos.
Oh yeah, sorry. How you doing? I was taking our last guest apart.
Yeah, it's all good. So let's say the question again. My bad.
Do you think that there is a lot of unknown history still within, like, maybe entertainment or just culture in general for the Bay Area?
Right,
and if so, why has it been held where we don't know?
There's so much to cover. It's like there's so many areas you can go into. Like
just
you said,
SF alone.
Just SF alone. Any of these cities alone.
SF, Richmond, Berkeley.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean,
exactly. But I think, you know, at the end of the day, man, we got to take responsibility for telling our stories. And now I feel like more than ever, there's a big surge in that with like movies and TV shows like Blind Spotting.
For sure.
Some of the other podcasts that are out here right now, some of the other artists, like there's some cool stuff happening. So I think it's just on us to tell that story. But yeah, it's kind of mind blowing how much has happened in this one area
That's impacted culture for the whole country.
Yeah.
Or around the world.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Do you think that it is our fault as the Bay Area for not growing or not being an even bigger staple in entertainment and art in general?
Nah, I don't think it's our fault, because I think the way that the Hollywood media entertainment machine works is just like they're based in New York, they're based in LA.
Yeah.
Stories from, you know, how many movies have been made about New York City, you know what I mean? How many movies are set in LA? It's like, that's not a coincidence, you know what I mean?
For sure.
That's just where a lot of these people and these companies are. And but I don't want to say our fault, but I would just say our responsibility, because I deal with a lot of people hitting me up, getting kind of in their feelings about, hey, how come you're not talking about me? I'm like, man, at the end of the day, that's not my job. That's your job.
Yeah.
You're supposed to go talk about you and then give me something to work with. You know what I mean?
Right.
And I still have respect for all that, but you know, and I feel this way about what I'm doing. I can't just sit back and go out as, oh yeah, that's that one guy from Instagram. It's like, nah, I got to show people what I'm about. You know what I mean?
Right.
I'm sure that happens. Yeah, like that's kind of happened to us in a way, where because you put like stories out there, and then someone's got something to say, and you already put it out there, and you're not responsible for it. Does that happen? Like, has that happened a lot to you?
I'm cool with people who know what they're talking about, who want to respectfully request a correction or put me on to somebody, or I might have misstated or whatever. I'd get annoyed a little bit at people who are like, hey man, you forgot to talk about this, or like, like just repeating some gossip or just weird. I get a lot of weird DMs from people.
I can imagine, because you know, like, were you using TikTok? Is that your main vessel that you put your content out right now? Because I know on Instagram you put a lot of stuff out too.
A lot of what I post on Instagram was created with TikTok, just using their program and their editing stuff. I do editing on Adobe Premiere, and I'm trying to run a campaign across YouTube, TikTok, Instagram. There's probably a few I'm forgetting, but yeah, I'm basically
the main.
Those are the main ones, and it's kind of like they're all one branch of the same tree. You know what I mean?
What was one of the history of the Bay videos that you make? What was one of the first ones that really you saw the
very first one?
The very first one.
Yeah, that's how I was like, oh shit, I think I did something. Yeah, because I was like, I'd been doing music for a minute, and I have a good following, and I've always been able to push that. But I know that I realized I gotta make this thing bigger. I gotta use these tools. So I'm like, all right, they're telling me TikTok is helping people get discovered and their algorithm, and I'm like, all right, what's working on TikTok? All right, you got people talking about advice, you got people doing dances, you got people doing funny shit. Right. And then I saw these guys that were just shout out to the Broadcast Boys. That's the name of the account that kind of inspired my format, because they were talking about sports facts and funny entertainment history with the green screen and the image behind them. And I was like, well, I'm gonna just do this instead of pictures. I'm gonna use videos, and I'm gonna talk about graffiti. See how that works. Wow. So I did one video about Psycho City. That was the first one. I used footage from Piece by Piece and other sources, threw it up. I've been trying different stuff up until then, some of it working, some not, to catch that TikTok algorithm. So I wasn't expecting nothing, put it in my pocket, woke up the next day, it was like bling, 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 follow, comment, like. Like it just started blowing up like crazy. Yeah. And I was like, oh shit. And then I did another one, did one on Twist, and it was like bling, 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 bling. And I'm like, oh shit, let me do the rap stuff too. Because I've been wanting to talk about how Master P started in Richmond, because I bet a lot of people don't even know that. Bling, 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 bling.
Yeah, he's from Richmond, didn't know that.
Yeah. There you go. Yeah. So yeah, it just picked up.
Mouth ran him out of the Bay, right? Now, isn't that how the story goes?
You'd have to ask Young about that.
Yeah, there's a lot of different stories I've heard about that too. Yeah, but that's you did one already about Master P.
Yeah, that was like this third one I did.
I check that out.
Yeah, because I heard he owned a record store out here. That's what I later on as a
No Limit Records was a record store before it was a label, and it was here in Richmond. And he was out here. He's talked about it a lot. Yeah. There's documentaries and stuff. But yeah, this is where he started. And his first records, he's representing Richmond. Yeah, he's rapping about Richmond. So yeah, it's a lot of history here.
That's a thing that like you said, you're from Richmond, didn't hear about that. A lot of little things like that, that I'd like to put out there. Yeah, that's also why I kind of wanted to do this thing for us to talk about. I have had a homie of mine who grew up playing with a lot of those metal bands that we talked about, and Metallica used to live and do shows in Richmond before they were blowing up.
What's his name? Kirk Hammond. He's from El Cerrito or something, right?
He's El Sobrante, and lived in Richmond. Yeah. So all that is. Because what was it called, the cultural wasteland of the Bay Area, Richmond, California.
Right. Master P going off and starting his own record label is very Bay Area hip hop in that he's going independent. We were having a discussion off air earlier. It was like, so many Bay Area rappers that the mind state is you make more money selling independent than you would going through a major, and then Marcos, you were like, nah, man, I don't think that's true. I don't think that's a choice. But I think that's Bay Area mentality, at its, being
independent.
Mm-hmm.
Would you say that's
absolutely.
I have a kind of theory though. We talked about Bay Area artists, and this I think specifically more hip hop, just because it is a bigger part of the culture out here. That Bay Area rappers get stuck here. One I think part of the reason is that a lot of artists in general are not helping each other out grow. Right? It's very selfish. I'm trying to get to the next level. Unless you can do something for me, I'm not really trying to fuck with you. Another thing is that I think sonically, a lot of people are trapped in what the Bay sound is. And it's cool to represent the Bay and stuff, but just like I was telling them earlier, that there's, you can hate on G-Eazy all you want, you can hate on whoever, but these guys got out. They kind of went a little more mainstream and stuff. And so, I think the part of people saying nah, I'm going to stay independent and stuff, it's not too much of a choice. You know what I mean? I don't know how many labels are coming out to the Bay and being like.
You'd be surprised at how many guys turn down deals.
I'm not saying
Especially
they don't.
during the hyphy movement.
No,
100%. Just for like since the beginning, a lot of people didn't. They were cool with staying. They wanted to stay independent. Some people did want to go and branch out, but you got to understand, some of these guys made millions of dollars.
Independent.
You're talking about the difference between $8 per CD and $2 per CD on a major. Right. And you're talking a market. We're one of the biggest markets in the world. It's millions of people.
Right.
You have access. This is the other thing that makes the Bay unique is I can hop in the car and go to San Bruno. And there's rap fans in San Bruno.
Right.
And then I can go to San Jose. And then I can come up 880 and hit Hayward. And then I can go to Fairfield. And then I can go to Stockton. And then I can go to Vallejo. Then I can go to Sacramento. Then I can go up to Humboldt County and Ukiah. And then you know what? The next Sunday I'm going down to Fresno. And then
Santa Cruz.
People were making millions of dollars.
Right. You could just do a local California tour.
Yes.
Sell out.
Yeah. Some people are cool with that, but I do agree with you. There's some people who don't understand. You can break out of your style. You don't have to sound like what everybody else is doing. There are people who hit a ceiling in terms of their reach and all that.
Right.
But there's always exceptions to that too. But I would just say overall, the reason why independent music in the Bay was big is because we was getting money out of it. We was getting a lot of money, bro. We're talking about like a lot of this early music was like financed by like street ballers.
Right.
They weren't doing this for the love of the arts. They was like, you can make money doing this? Huh? All right. Let's put these, oh shit, I got $1 million, man. Shit, okay, let's put some more of it out. Like, that's how a lot of these things started.
What was his name? I forgot, famous Oakland drug dealer. Supposedly, like his nephew funded a lot of like the old, like Drew Downs. I don't know if that's true, but that's like allegedly like the street dudes.
Drew Down was put out by this guy named CNH, who had CNH Records, and he was respected as an Oakland baller in the town. Yeah.
Sure. So
that's awesome.
Like stuff like that, you know.
And then look at that record too. And then a lot of those guys, they started independent, and then a lot of these classics did come out on major labels, like getting picked up down the line and stuff like that.
What do you think?
Hieroglyphics had a major deal.
Exactly.
So where do you think the state of Bay music is today?
I think it's all over the place. It's too much to box into one type of thing. There's so much going on that I cannot keep up with it and pretend.
Yeah.
There's OGs still smashing, doing dope stuff. There's really young guys doing dope stuff. There's a bit of an underground mainstream, I feel like, and this might be what you're talking about when you say people stuck in the same bass sound. Because if you go to the club, if you go here, it tends to be the same style and the same type of cats that are coming out. But then, man, the beautiful thing about being from the Bay is like there's probably some rapper you never heard of that just only raps over like sample loops, and he's got a huge fan base in Denmark or something like that.
Yeah,
right.
And he's going on tour in Montana, and there's just like so much going on in the Bay Area that I'm like, cool, salute to all of it. But the days of like the Bay being one type of unified sound, one type of unified region, I don't see that happening.
You think that's over?
It's just too much. Too much going on.
Even SF and Oakland rappers sound so different.
Yeah,
like it's a whole, like you said, the
Dundeal and those guys
did
not sound like the yellow bus movement of the
right.
You know,
just that geographically, like not that far, and like you said, SF had more of that East Coast, like, vibe to it.
Yes, in some ways there was like a lot of aggressive rapping in Frisco, and this is what I'm talking about when I was growing up hearing battles and stuff like that. It would be some dude on the bus from Fillmore that's like sounds like Dipset or something like that, or the Locks or something like that. But the thing is, and this is what I was getting at earlier, right? Like when you think of San Francisco in the 90s, it's a few artists that pop up come to mind, right? San Quinn, Andre Nicotina. You think of Oakland, okay, Keek the Sneak and Too Short. You think of Vallejo, okay, E40, Mac Dre. Now there's so many rappers in each of those cities doing so many different things that it's impossible to make that into one cohesive music scene, I feel like. Mm-hmm.
Everyone's inspired by different things too, like because of the proliferation of the internet. And
I was gonna say with not just like social media, but Spotify and the internet growing so fast. SoundCloud. We were able to discover music from everywhere. Yeah. And you were able to get inspiration from everywhere.
Exactly.
So whatever that bass sound was back then is kind of non-existent per se.
Yeah, back then, yes. Yeah.
Well, I'm talking like now.
Yeah.
Right.
The sound of back then now, it's not quite the same.
Now, as far as touring is concerned, what's the coolest place you've ever toured?
Touring?
Yeah.
I just did 2 shows in Japan a couple months ago.
Japan?
That was my second time out there.
Damn.
Wow.
That was pretty dope.
That's awesome.
And in preparation for this interview, I was listening to Skies Over Tokyo.
Oh, good looking out.
Did you record that?
I wrote it over there. There's one song I recorded in Japan. That was my last trip in 2019. And I recorded one song there, and I wrote the rest of the album there. That was I know this guy, Ilsugi from Tokyo. When I was mentioning my group earlier, Gas Mask Colony, he bought our first CD in Japan. This store in Japan was like buying our first CD when we were like 19, and he heard it in high school. And he makes like lo-fi sample beats that I really dig. And I've done 3 projects with him. So in 2019, I went out there and did a record release for one of them, and then just last year I went back just to touch down again, see my folks, go spread the word, sell some music, sell some merch.
Was that your first time going to Japan?
No, the first time I went to Japan with a school trip, bro. Like I went to a ghetto ass high school, but it was International Studies Academy. So they had this program where they would take like kids from the hood and show them other countries. So I got to go to Japan in like 2004.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
That's so. To me, like I always, we've been doing this since 2019, and last year's analytics came back, and 28 countries have listened to our show, which is to me, I don't know why I can't imagine people from Norway listening, just because we talk about specific bass stuff that even people in other parts of the U.S. might not relate to. How does it feel to go and do your art in another country where the culture's
at first it was a trip, because when I got there in 2019 and I had met Ilsugi once before. He flew out here. Okay. But I'm meeting all these other people who like know everything about me. They love San Francisco, and specifically, like they come to my show wearing like black on black Niner hats, like ill Giants jackets I ain't never seen before. They don't speak English, but they're singing along to my lyrics. Like that was a trip. And so again, when we talk about like the Bay Area almost being pigeonholed, it's like, well, some people like that pigeonholes. Like they like that shit more than they like anything else. For sure. I was in Paris last year too, and I met up with all these guys who were like, we love the Bay, we love Le Bay. Like they just love, they have like CD collections of all the shit I grew up listening to. Brought me on a radio show where they've been using my song as their intro, and it's just like crazy shit like that. Like, oh, okay, this shit is big. It's just certain artists don't know how to capitalize off that, and certain artists do. And I think that's what you're saying earlier about people not breaking out. Then I looked up to people like Hieroglyphics and Living Legends, and they knew how to wiggle in Europe and Asia, and they knew that it was money over there, and that fan base was there. So
I could definitely tell based off of what I've heard of your music those are your inspirations, at least sonically somewhat. I'm like, oh man, like this feels like I can't believe I didn't discover you earlier.
I appreciate that. To keep it real though, so my sonic inspiration was like Bay Area mob music, but a lot of East Coast music too. So like big Wu-Tang, Tribe Called Quest, Nas, Mobb Deep, all that. I like grimy New York old school music, and I like fun, classic, like positive hip hop stuff too.
Like Tribe and stuff like that. Yeah. That's gonna be my next question, which you answered. Like as far as Bay Area, what's been your biggest inspiration?
I think Andre Nickatina was the first local rapper I ever heard of. And I got the opportunity to meet him over the years and do songs with him. A lot of shows, and that's been dope. Mac Dre was a huge wave when I was a kid. Being able to see that happen like in real time. Same thing with San Quinn's movement. this is what I love about the Bay Area music scene is like it's so close to the soil. So when San Quinn's dropping an album, like a bunch of kids from Fillmore are coming to school like, Quinn dropping on Friday, and you know, like that type of stuff really inspired me, seeing how it was some big shit, but it was also like, oh shit,
Local.
it's happening right over there.
Organic.
Yeah.
it's like right, and that's the cool thing that I, you know, like how you describe that. That's how I see, you know, in the Bay Area with comedy.
Right.
A lot of comics are coming out of the Bay Area. If you think of like the top 5 best comics in like right now, they got a Bay Area opener. Like that's the thing that's happening right now. That's also why I wanted to do this, to showcase a lot of that, because it's just so much good stuff coming out of one place, man. Like something in the soil, something's going on here that's adding to culture.
Yeah, whatever you're into, you can find it out here.
Yeah.
And there's only a few places like that, and I would say New York and LA are like that too. If you're interested in it, they got it.
Possibly Chicago.
Possibly Chicago as well.
Atlanta's
Sure.
kind of building up.
Sure.
Too.
Yeah.
How do you see the future of Bay Area art with the way the Bay Area is like heading towards right now? A lot of people are moving out of SF. A lot of East Bay cats are moving to Antioch, you know, like that. We're in the, like, you know, Oakland, Richmond area. And you see a lot of artists leaving. Mm-hmm. What do you think, like overall, how do you see the future of?
Well, you know, like the gentrification stuff hit really hard, especially San Francisco, where like it's just unrecognizable in a lot of places. Like damn near everybody I grew up with is gone.
Yeah.
But I kind of made my peace with it at this point. Like, all right, it happened, the housing crisis, all that stuff. Like, now we just build with what we got.
For sure.
And there's plenty of people who are sticking around and committed to making stuff happen out here. Yeah. Myself being one of them. I don't see myself leaving San Francisco again. I just moved back not too long ago.
Oh, you had moved?
Yeah. I've been all over. I lived in Oakland. I lived in Sacramento.
Yeah.
So yeah, I feel pretty optimistic about everything, to be honest.
I feel like like you said, the pandemic kind of like it was kind of like a boost, a boost that some artists needed.
Yeah. To
make their shit better.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
It was like a big, and I also see that it also, if anything, it kind of showed how important the arts are.
Oh man, that shit. It was the difference between people who were like understandably stressed out and just like a lot of their shit got canceled and all this, and they kind of put things on hold for a minute.
Yeah.
Me, I was like, I'm finna go harder.
Yeah.
I had the best year of my life at that point. 2020, and yeah, I linked up with Nicotina. I made my biggest song so far, and then as soon as everything opened up, me and him were touring, and everything just went up from there. So the pandemic changed things for me. A lot of crazy shit, obviously, but it gave me the boost I needed. And every year since then has been better and better, including 2023 is off to a really great start.
For sure.
Yeah.
No, yeah, I noticed that for us, like, you know, when everyone was trapped inside, there was more listeners. That's why I saw, not that I didn't see the potential for podcasting before 2020, but I actually saw it more as like the value in what's it called, what's the word, we're just using it, like to put out news, or journalism.
Yeah. Media period.
Yeah. You know, this can be our own BBC, our own.
Oh, yeah.
You know,
Yeah. It's your channel, man.
It's your own channel.
Network. Yeah.
Area Broadcasting Company.
Yeah. That's what you got. That's what. So, and I think that's one of the blessings that we had during the pandemic. Like you said, that was your best year for us. I think ever since then, it's been like we kind of got into way better because of it. Because people, like, you know, people will watch like news and then, you know, come back to watch something like, you know, like of ours where we may be talking about some stupid shit like we did earlier today, but it also kind of it puts people at ease.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that I'm seeing, like with this whole podcasting thing now. You know, it's fun to look for stories to talk about. Like, you know, like what you said, you have fun doing the History of the Bay podcast. For me too, it's like it's a fun thing to go. I've learned so much doing this. Have you had moments like that where like,
well, yeah, that's the other side of it. Is like, if I didn't have this outlet during the pandemic, being shut up in my house all day, I probably would have been I would have been down bad.
Yeah, gaining like 30 pounds and
all that stuff.
Yeah.
But I made more music. I started pushing my music harder. I just damn near, like, I don't know if this is the right word, but I distracted myself. Like, I wasn't thinking about what was going on with COVID and all this stuff. I was just like, man, everything's great, cool.
Yeah,
like, you know what I'm saying?
You're in the studio 24/7,
making music. I'm having fun. I'm enjoying myself.
Ah, man,
and then sorry not to cut you off, but then also, like, there's gonna be moments where things happen in the world, like, you know, the way that life is every day, I can change it any second. But if you can take advantage of those moments, you know, because I saw the same thing you're talking about. All right, people are staying at home. Even my streams were like, everything was going up. So it's like, okay, boom, it's go time. It's go time. Everything's messed up outside, but I'm gonna take advantage of this moment that I have and use it to make myself and other people feel good about their day.
Yeah, and that's the perfect thing, you know, because that's one thing that I'm starting to see is like, no matter what happens in the world, no matter how expensive stuff is, people still want to be entertained.
Yeah.
And they're not gonna cancel their Hulu.
Bread and circuses, man.
Yeah.
Bread and circuses. Right. Yeah. So that's why I, you know, like, good content, man, isn't just like. That's why I feel like it's so important, like the shift in the culture now. Good content isn't just shit you turn on to watch TV. I watch more shit on my phone now.
Yeah, it's crazy, right?
Yeah.
That's probably a lot of people.
That's where a lot of the eyeballs are at now in this, more than their TV setup, you know? Mm-hmm. So, and that's why, like I said, that's why I was honored that you came down here to do our little show, man, because, you know, I see how I've been following your stuff for a while. And I know I've said it again, but I'm saying it again. Like, I think what you're doing is it's really important, man. I think if those stories, like, there's probably so much more. I'm sure you have some that you haven't made videos about.
Oh, yeah. Plenty, yeah.
Is there some that you could talk about, or that you, like, give a preview of?
I mean, no, because I'd make them based off what I feel like talking about in a given day.
It's video by video.
Yeah, it's video by video. Like, today I'm like, oh, this is dope, I'm gonna do this, or like, you know.
For sure.
Yeah, I don't have a schedule.
Going back to the music a little bit.
Sure.
You're saying that you, like, were able to, like, connect with Andre Nicotina, make your biggest song. You're touring Japan and stuff. This is stuff that, like, artists dream about.
Yeah.
You know, what is some advice that you can give to artists that are trying to do what you're doing, what you've accomplished, and if you could be, like, we hear, like, the stuff, be like, you know, be consistent, you know, practice, blah blah blah, but what's some, like, real things that, like, you've learned in this journey that, like, a lot of people don't tell you?
I think what you're saying, like, the idea of being, this is someone's dream, is like, that's where it starts right there, is like having that vision of what you want to accomplish and then thinking about the practical ways to execute that. So yeah, okay, I want to tour. Okay, yeah, I want to get this guy on a song. I want to do these shows over here, whatever. I just look at it as bus and plays. It's all one play after another. You execute and then on to the next. But instead of having that dream of, like, because when I was young, right, I was disorganized. I was smoking blunts, drinking 40s. I've been rapping a long time. I always had a fan base, but I wasn't doing what I'm doing now, because in my mind the vision was just, oh, I want to rap. I'm finna rap. Okay, I rap. Hey, I rap. Here's the CD. I rap.
Right.
Now I'm like, all right, what does this really look like?
Right.
Who do I got to talk to in Japan? What do I got to set up? How am I going to promote this?
Right.
And then
now you're thinking like a business.
You're thinking like a business,
right.
And it's not a business in the sense of like, yeah, let me sell this art and make some money. It's like, no, let me make this profitable so I can get my money back and invest it into doing more shit that I like, so I don't have to do other stuff that I don't want to do. You know what I'm saying?
Right. I think exactly what you said, like being profitable to, I'm not saying that money has to be your entire goal, but knowing, like, man, if I can learn how to mix and master my own stuff, or if I can do this right, if I can find a guy that I can hook up with and be like, yo, I promise I'm going to send you everything I got for the next year.
Exactly.
Right? I plan on releasing 6 or 7 songs. Can we work out a deal where this is now manageable? I know I'm not eating fast food every night because my dream is this, right? That's being smart about your business decisions, right?
Right.
Then being like, okay, even if I only sold 100 records at $12 a pop, now I got a couple $1,000 I can go buy a plane ticket. Now I can go do that, buy my hotel room.
Yep.
That just paid for that.
That's exactly
You know
how
what
it
I mean?
works. Yep.
A lot of sacrificing along the way.
Nah.
No.
I had to sacrifice some suckers. I had to say, I ain't hanging with these dudes no more, man.
For sure.
Was that difficult for you to like cut people out?
Nah, they made it easy.
Yeah.
But it's real talk because you can't be around people that don't share that kind of vision, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And what you're talking about, all these things you say in plane tickets, they're all practical steps.
Yeah.
So like it's a basic equation, man. A plus B is gonna equal C.
Right.
So when you have this vision of like, what does this shit actually look like? You can think of more of these practical things. The more little tiny nuts and bolts you tighten up, the better it looks. Like,
Right.
I'm into shit like getting shipping accounts at the post office, and like, you know what I'm talking about, and paying off my studio internet with my business credit and stuff like that. You know what I'm saying? Building business credit, investing wisely.
Are you an LLC? Or,
Yeah.
That's something me and my band are working on right now. It's like becoming an official business.
And that's the thing, artists, that's why they get played. Because they don't know that part of,
They're not invested in learning. Yeah. Some artists, they don't have this business savvy about them, but they're very talented, but they need somebody else to build those bridges and do all that shit they don't want to do or that they can't do. So they're just making music, and then somebody comes along and takes the music and puts it in the machine. But a lot of shit can get lost in translation if you're not taking an interest and saying, hold on, let me put the blunt down. What'd you say? How long does the contract term last? Wait, so what does that mean? What do I got to do? Mm-hmm. A lot of artists are just like, yeah, cool, and then they get lost into the idea of being an artist. Look at me, I'm an artist, I rap, I do this, and then meanwhile you're getting played.
You know what?
ways.
I hear that. I used to hear that a lot. If you don't want to be that business guy, some guys don't, and that's okay. Like, but just know that blah blah blah. I think that's a complete bullshit thing, to be honest. I think every artist needs, if you want to make this a career, if you want to make any type of money off of this, you have to be that business guy.
You just got to be informed at least.
There's no way that you can just be an artist anymore.
Yeah.
There's absolutely no way. You're obviously, I mean, if you're just putting stuff on SoundCloud because like that's what you want to do and you don't want to make money, do taxes, whatever, all good. Then that doesn't matter. But if you genuinely want to move up, I think
you have to take a business approach.
You have to have some kind of business mindset, and you have to at some point be like, yo, I'm a businessman now.
Yeah, I would agree.
There's sharks and leeches on both sides.
No, because I mean 100%.
Yeah.
Because even like, let's just say, man, I want to book some shows around here in the Bay.
Yeah.
Right. Just some small clubs to open up for, get on some bill. Dude, you know the amount of pay to plays there are? You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
I know,
dude, just jump on this try. All you got to do is sell out 30 tickets first, and then next thing you know, it's like, oh, but you also have to sell 45 more tickets to make any kind of money.
Yeah.
And then this, and that. Next thing you know, you're just paying $600 out of pocket just to play every show.
Yeah.
Right.
You know what I mean?
And that's a dirty thing.
Learn your fan base.
So the flip side of that is, right, you could pay X amount of dollars to get on this show, right? Or you could throw your own show on a Tuesday night at a small ass bar and charge $10. And if you got 5 people that show up, you made $50, man.
Right.
Or you can spend $600 and be in the red to go do this other shit. You know what I'm saying?
That probably, well, you know, I mean, I've done a lot of pay to plays where it was not beneficial at all.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Because you're just another opener.
You're another opener. No one's paying attention to you.
Yeah.
You know,
I've done 1 or 2 back in the day.
Every artist has.
You know who I paid to open up for 2006?
Oh, shit.
Gas Mask Colony opened up for Nicotine and Yuckmouth, Dejaka, San Quinn.
Wow.
And Big Rich and Drew Down.
That's the last
Phoenix
lineup.
Theater in Petaluma. That was like $300, and that was like our first show. So we're like, we gotta pay, blah. Here, you got some money here, $20 here, and then we did it and we rocked it, and it was worth it at the time for that stage.
Sure. Yeah.
But just moving forward, I would have told told younger me, okay, yeah, do that shit if you want to do it, but from now on, you
don't
gotta
ever
get
do that
paid
again.
for everything
Right.
you do, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I kind of had that approach in a way, like after I sat down with like an OG comic, where it's like, hey man, every time you go out, if you're not bringing something back, don't do it.
Yeah.
Unless it's like that thing we did, the Keenan Thompson thing.
Right,
where
right,
It
right.
could lead to something.
Right.
All right,
There are
cool.
some opportunities out there.
100%.
for sure.
Yeah, because that
100%.
show we did, they told us, writers for SNL are going to be watching our clip,
Right.
and even if you don't win the competitions,
You never know what they might
you
like.
never
you.
know.
Yeah.
They might call you down.
Putting
to New
yourself out there is cool, but also like, if I'm going all the way to like Salinas, or if I'm going, I gotta get something now.
I think it's cool in the beginning as you're getting better and you're building
Right,
your
you're
audience.
sure. Yeah,
but once you're good enough and enough people know you, it's just like,
Right,
you gotta
right.
make it profitable
Yeah.
in some way.
Yeah, because
Absolutely.
we got the light earlier, man. I don't want to take too much of your time, but like I first of all, like I said, I appreciate you coming out here, man. We were thinking about doing like a live podcast too. I would like to later on, if we do make it happen, and have you come out on the live in front of an audience. We've done it before.
dope.
How is it for you doing the podcast in front of an audience, man?
Oh, this is what I do. I just talking to microphones, man.
Yeah.
People watching.
Yeah, you're a performer. You already know.
Yeah. So I'll be happy too, man.
Oh yeah,
Post
man.
it.
Yeah, like I said, I like your content, man. Do you feel like you're kind of in a place where you're like I don't want to say filmmaker, but because you put together these videos like I'm watching a documentary.
Yeah, I got a documentary project I'm working on right now, and I have a couple other ideas, and I'm trying to branch out into more different styles of content too. So film is definitely something I got my eye on one day.
Right on, man. Do you have any plans of when it may come out?
It's too early to say. I have one that's in production right now, though.
Man, that's awesome, man. Like I said, thank you again for coming out. Any last words you want to tell our listeners? Any where they can follow you and all that?
Sure. Check me out, Dregs1, DREGSONE. Type that into any platform known to man, and I will pop up.
Right on, man. Thank you again for coming out, bro.
Appreciate y'all, man.
Thank you, man.
Good time.
Appreciate it.
That's been the Voice Party.
And we're out.
Oh man, that was good.
Yo.
That was really good.